It was the kind of trip a child looks forward to. A summer escape to a family friend's secluded cabin on Miller Mountain in West Virginia. The air was always crisp in the mornings, the mountain shrouded in mist that seemed to rise from the forest floor like a living thing. It was the perfect setting for a young child to explore, to run wild and free through the thick woods surrounding the cabin. But one particular afternoon, the adventures took a dark turn. The child, no older than 6, had been outside for hours, their laughter echoing through the trees as they played in the warm afternoon sun. Their younger sibling was with them, running alongside, as they ventured deeper into the woods, away from the safety of the cabin. The further they went, the more the sounds of nature seemed to fall away. The birds stopped singing, the rustling of the leaves grew hushed. There was an unnatural stillness, a quiet that pressed against their chests like an invisible weight. It was the silence that caught their attention first. The child stopped in their tracks, eyes scanning the dense trees. The air, once warm and welcoming, now felt cold. It wasn't the chill of a breeze. It was the kind of cold that settled into your bones, the kind of cold that made every hair on the back of your neck stand on end. They turned, feeling an unshakable sense of being watched, and that's when they saw it. Standing just at the edge of the tree line was a figure. At first, the child thought it was another person, maybe one of the other visitors to the cabin. But the longer they stared, the more they realized it was something far worse. The creature was tall, unnaturally tall. Its figure was disturbingly thin, almost skeletal, with skin stretched taut over its bones. The pale, waxy complexion of its flesh glowed faintly, as if it were sickly, and there was no sign of any clothing or distinguishing marks on its body. It stood perfectly still, unmoving like a statue, but its eyes, those glowing eyes, locked onto the child with a gaze that felt almost tangible. Its eyes weren't human. They were too large, too wide, with an unnatural brightness that seemed to pierce the growing gloom of the forest. They glowed with an eerie light that reminded the child of something unholy. The figure's stare was intense, unmoving. It felt as if it could see straight through them, deep into their very soul. The child felt a surge of terror wash over them, their heart pounding in their chest. It was an overwhelming, primal fear, the kind that freezes you in place, making it impossible to run. Every instinct screamed at them to flee, to get away, but their body refused to obey. They were trapped, held in place by that unrelenting gaze. The air grew heavier, and the silence around them seemed to thicken, pressing down on their chest. It wasn't just the figure that terrified them. It was the sense of dread that seemed to emanate from it. The woods had gone silent, the air had grown cold, and there was something deeply wrong about the way it just stood there, watching. It wasn't just human. It wasn't just an animal. It was something otherworldly, something ancient. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. The child couldn't move, couldn't tear their gaze away from those glowing eyes. For what felt like hours, they stood frozen, rooted to the spot by terror creeping up their spine. They had no words, no ability to scream or shout. It was as if the very presence of the creature had robbed them of their voice. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the child's body jerked back into motion. A surge of adrenaline kicked in, and without thinking they turned and ran. They didn't look back, didn't dare to check if the creature had moved. They just ran, their feet pounding the earth beneath them, breath coming in sharp, terrified gasps As they sprinted back toward the cabin, the sense of being chased, though there was no sound of footsteps behind them, gnawed at their mind. The cold dread that had gripped their chests did not leave. Their feet didn't slow down until they reached the cabin's porch, the door slamming shut behind them with a finality that seemed to banish the terror. Inside the cabin, the children were breathless, shaking uncontrollably, their hands trembling as they tried to explain what they had seen. The tall, pale figure with glowing eyes. They recounted the chilling gaze, the coldness in the air, the overwhelming sense of being watched. But when the child tried to share the details with the adults, they were met with skepticism. The family brushed it off, dismissing it as a trick of the light, a figment of an overactive imagination. It was just a shadow, they said, probably a deer or some other animal in the woods. The child was told to go to bed, their fears written off as something more than a childish fantasy. But that night, sleep did not come easy. They lied awake, eyes wide open, staring at the shadows in the corners of the cabin, wondering if the pale figure was still out there, watching, waiting. Years later, as an adult, they would find themselves searching online, reading stories about cryptids and creatures lurking in the darkness. It was then that they stumbled upon the rake. The description of the creature was eerily similar to the thing they had seen in the woods that summer afternoon. The glowing eyes, the gaunt skeletal body, the feeling of being watched, of something unnatural lingering in the shadows. The pieces clicked together, and the truth became undeniable. What they had seen that day was no mere figment of imagination. It had been the rake, or something like it. The terror of that moment still haunted them, even after all those years. Every time they closed their eyes, they could still see the glowing eyes of that creature, locked onto them, watching, waiting.